There's Tim.
Welcome everybody. I hope you're all having a good weekend, and I thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your weekend to come and talk about Chatterbox and listen to some of the fine words that Cowboy has to say. And during this webinar, Andy will cover the Chatterbox web service and a first pass at the WinDev version of Chatterbox. Participants this week did receive the first code release, and that code release covered the Chatterbox web services. If you didn't get the code release in Dropbox, please send me an email at tim.fishbeck@idedic.com. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Andy.
Well, evening, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great Memorial Day weekend. For those that are workaholics and are sitting here with me, like Mr. Mattis and Tim and Pete, you know, we carve out our time just to do this kind of stuff, and this kind of guys we are. What I'm going to go over is we did have a software release for the web services. There will be another one probably tomorrow morning, as I've made some changes to it already. I'm trying to get a little bit more consistent about naming conventions and stuff, so that way they're all the same across the board, and no remarks, Pete. But as I go through this, what we're doing, or what I wanted to do or attempted to do on this, is we're going to be using multiple languages in our system. So if we have error messages, or we have messages coming back from the web services that we want to indicate to the individuals things are going on, we've got to have an array of such messages so we know which language we want to do. So one of the things that we managed to do in another product was have an array within an array. Basically, we're taking an outer array and putting arrays within that in order to send that back via web services or via a situation. And this allows us a great amount of flexibility to send data. We can literally send multiple tables at the same time if we wanted to do so. Right at the moment, we're going to be doing basically 2 array structures, and that's the only thing we're going to be doing. And one is a set of messages that we may want to send back, and the other one is the actual data itself. So in order to do this is fairly, just not really that hard. What we do is we set up a structure for the return messages. We set up a structure for the record, both of those. And we want to keep them as small as possible. That's the reason why we're using the structures instead of the entire class, because in essence, we're going to be using the web service the same as a direct access to the database, where we wouldn't have all the class information in the first place. So in essence, we're going to create the 2 structures that match exactly what we're doing, and we're going to have the return data structure, which holds the array of the chat room, which is the data structure that we're working with, and an array of return messages. Both of those are in there. For those from the old language, those are like queues within a queue, only they work. So to go a little bit further, we've set up a record structure for the return messages, a record structure for the chat room, and then we have the return value for our entire array, which is here. Next step is we've got our chat room class, and we fetch the data from the class, which is the normal select statement. If we go there, we can see that we've got a select statement that says, select all the chat information from the chat rooms and send it back. That's all we're doing. From that, we're going to loop through that array of records we fetched and add the ones to the array chat room. Now here's where it gets a little funky. Well, not really funky. It's actually pretty slick. If we didn't get any records back, then we obviously got a problem. If anybody's worked with web services, one of the problems that I see with it is knowing to switch from one side to the other. Whereas I didn't get any data. Why didn't I get any data? Is there a problem with the web service? Is there a problem with my SQL statement or whatever I did, or things like this? My filtering was wrong. What was wrong? So what I did here was if I got no records back, that's what the array count is doing. If that's 0, then I set a language and I says unable to fetch chat room. And I add that to the message array. If not, I said in Spanish, I put the language to Spanish and I put in the Spanish version of saying, hey, ain't got no data. And the last one is the French version, which is I didn't get no data there either. Okay? And I add those to the array. When that's done, based upon whether I want XML type coming back or buffer, which is basically most of the time it's going to be buffer, I serialize that information and send it to my server that's or whatever requester is sending it. Now, this is all fairly straightforward. This is not very difficult. And what I'll end up doing here is I'm going to start documenting each one of these pieces. So as you are part of the DEF CON this year, you'll get this code and you'll be able to understand, and hopefully you will look at it and go, hey, I can use that here, I can use that there. And that's the greatest thing that we can give you is example codes of working stuff. We can all find example codes of code, but we want to have example codes of stuff that actually works. So in order to run this and do what this is doing, that is already up there on the web service. For those that have it, you can go to this website or this page here, which is the WBWinCCScowboy.com.
We're not seeing that, Andy.
Huh?
There you go.
Can you see it?
We weren't seeing it at first. Yeah, we can.
I saw it right away.
That's weird. It took forever.
Okay. WBWin.CCScowboy.com, Chatterbox WS_web AW whatever yada 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 yada. And I'm gonna post it over here.
Can you copy it over
the chat?
Can you copy it into this chat here? Then I'll move it over to the. I'll move it.
Okay. There it is. And what that'll do is gives you if you have the main one. This is really the one you want. I'm sorry, I didn't go back far enough.
Oops. That one?
Okay, the index gives you which one we're doing, and we're doing the fetch chat room. And if I want to test it, I put in XML in caps. It's got to be uppercased, and I hit the test, and now I see the XML that's supposed to be coming back to me. Okay? As you can see, it's got the chat room structure there. It's going to have the message structure if you had any messages in there, and it has both of them, and we just rock and roll from there. Now, in order to see this in actual programming, I've already started the new Chatterbox upgrade in WinDev 18. Okay, so let's see. Tell me when you got all that. Can you see it?
I see the parameters.
Should be able to see
parameters of test class.
Yeah. 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 And basically, what I've done here is I have brought in the web service here in the Chatterbox over here on this side under the web service, so I can call any of those functions that I want to call. And then the last step that I want to do is I want to go to the classes, and I'm changing a couple things on the classes. So we're going to go through that chat room class for a moment. This looks exactly the same as the chat room class on the other one. The only difference is that I brought in the structures that I use in the web service as well. I brought in those structures. So when I fetch the stuff from the web service, I can put them into the same structures and the same information as what they have. This is part of the documentation that you should have. These are all types that you can get from the web service. Okay? So, as we go through this, I've got the return message structure here, I've got the chat room structure here, and I've got the return data structure here, which has the two arrays in it of our information of both of our chat room array and our messages. Okay? Everything else stays the same. I've got the chat room class and I've got the data for the chat room. I do the select statement from the chat room, things like this. And you're going to ask me, well, if I'm using the web services, why am I using this? Because this program will have a local set of hyperfile data storing what you've downloaded. So the only thing that's going to happen is in the background, it's going to check to see if there's anything new. And when it checks for anything new, it'll download it and throw it into the hyperfile databases for you to be able to review at your leisure. Okay? So this is all going to be in the background processing, so you still have to have access to the local data. Okay? So we're still going to have access to the local data is what we're going to have here. And this is all going to be hyperfile client server. Okay. Down here at the bottom, I've added a new method, and that method is fetch web service. That's what that new method is fetch web service. The fetch web service identifies the two structures for the records that we need. I instantiate a new record class because I'm going to be adding it to the array. And then I'm going to go fetch the data stream coming back from the web service. And I'm doing it as a buffer instead of XML. That way I get it as quickly as I can. In fact, because since it's all binary, you get it back very, very quickly this way. Then you have to deserialize it, and the deserialization takes that binary, puts it back into XML format, and throws it to the screen, or throws it to the data areas. Last step we do is we go through for each record of the received data dot the chat room array, which is the entire chat room. We want to get that record, and we're using the deep assign, basically anything matches, move the data over, and add it to the array line. That's what we've done. In order to test this, you can't test it directly in the class. Okay? Since you can't test it directly in the class, what we have to do is I create a little little deal here that is just a global procedure that says this is my test class. As I do each one of them, I'm going to run them through this is all I'm going to do. And I'm setting up the chat room class, I'm telling it to fetch the web service, I'm doing the record, and for each one I'll do a trace. So let's take a look at this running and see what we get.
Andy?
Yeah.
Andy, before you do, go back over to the method that we were just looking at, get web service.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it yet on my side.
It's fetch web service.
It's really dragging. The deserialize.
Yeah.
Should that third parameter still be XML even though you're getting a buffer?
Yeah, because you're still doing an XML buffer no matter what, even though it's not binary. See, if you set the thing to binary, which you could do between WinDev and the web service, you could set it to binary, but you couldn't do that to the mobile device. Mobile device cannot do binary.
Hey, so does JSON come into play anywhere?
Okay, so it's really just two formats of XML.
That's right.
Okay.
That's all you do. So I'm just keeping it consistent. Okay? The fact that it puts it into a buffer is what makes it, numbers basically. It's binary numbers. But the PDS XML says when I undo this, make it XML format. Okay?
That's tricky.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I'll show you. We'll look at each piece of the data through the debugger, and you'll see what comes back and what's there. Okay, but basically what happens here is that let me put a stop here so we can see this. Basically, what happens is that the thing this makes it consistent for both the mobile device as well as the desktop coming from the web service. Plus, if you're not WinDev at all, I can tell it to send XML, and it'll send raw XML if I want it to. Okay? We can do that too. And I'll show you the difference here because we can do that. Let's see, data XML is string, and what we'll do is we'll copy this line and we'll just look at both of them is what we'll end up doing. Now this has got to be XML to see it. Okay? So I can send it as XML and get ASCII XML back to me. Okay? But that's also slower because it takes longer to transmit characters than it does raw data. So that's the reason why we try to use buffer more than anything, because it's a lot faster. Okay? So going back to this from the get-go, let's go through this procedure. We're going to run it. Yeah, I know it. Okay. Oh, you didn't do it. You didn't stop here. It's supposed to stop here.
Hey, were you going to leave line 13 in? Were you going to leave line 13 in? Or it was just to show us?
Yes. We'll look at both of them. Yeah, that's what we'll end up doing. Let me get back here to my area here and do some coding. So what we'll do is go into test class. We'll stop it here. Then we'll run it.
While you're typing, whoever a guest is, can you type in the chat what your name is so I can change it for you?
Yeah. Okay, so let's step through this now. F7 takes me into the fetch web service, go get the record structure. Yeah, and this is where my error comes in, and that's fine. I don't care. Come on. I was trying to do something in background. I should have remarked it out. Well, you ain't going to let me do it, are you? All right, fine. So go in here. I know you get a message around here somewhere. Still working with a debugger on 18. There we go. Okay, so we'll mark that out.
Yeah, I'm turning everybody's mic on. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. If you're not,
I'm still working through code here.
is that the mic's on? But if you're not going to talk, just use your the mute button.
So if you see me fumbling around with this, I think I'll unfumble.
Well, you're an 18, aren't you?
Yeah. And I just started basically a couple days ago.
So the source code is going to be an 18?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and that should... Alright, so let's just mark out this stuff for the moment, because I don't think we need it. Let's see what we got going on here. Because I don't care to run any of that stuff, okay? Or you're just not going to run, are you? Alright, fine.
Is this the May 22nd update?
Yeah. Okay, now let's try this again. This shouldn't be jumping over trying to do anything now. Alright, so let's go down to here. Run until cursor. Run until cursor. Thank you. Okay, so now, one step past this, All right, now, so what does the data stream have in it? And let's take a look at that. The data stream has nothing but binary numbers in it. You can see that, right? Everybody can see that the data stream has nothing but binary numbers in it, or hex numbers, basically.
Yep. Impressive.
That's what we're getting back. Okay? Now, the next one, data XML, that holds the actual raw XML. So let's look at data XML. Well, the data XML now looks, this is what we're getting back on the data XML. That's the actual stream that is in there. You can see each one of the records that's coming back.
So, Andy, if somebody intercepts my calls, are they going to see the XML or the binary? If I use,
they'll if I'm doing buffer, they'll see nothing but hexadecimal.
So that's kind of good too, in that sense. Not only is it faster, but it's almost like encrypted.
It's got a little bit of security. I mean, just from, until somebody looks at it and goes, I could probably undo it, but at the moment, don't need to. But, that's the two methods you can pull back is one of those two right there. So we're going to use the buffer because it's literally faster. The larger the file, the faster that buffer is returned. Okay? So we got that, and then the next step is we deserialize it. Okay, and then we add it to our record structure, and we go on down here to our procedure. Okay, let it finish up. Still working on this thing. There you go. Okay, so now I've got a bunch of records in the array, and if I look at the chat room on the array here, and look at the array records, I've got 5 records that's coming in, and each one of them has the different chat rooms. WinDev General. Second one should have WinDev WD only. So now I've got those records now down in order to show it on the screen. And the second part about this is, and the second part I'm coding, is that now that I've got tested and I know that I'm getting data from the web service like I'm supposed to, then the next step that I do is I go ahead and get it in the local hyperfile client server database and store it there. And I look to see if it's already there. If it is, that's fine. If it isn't, it isn't. I may change my filtering for this, because that's one of the things that we'll be doing is doing some filtering to the web service to say, I've got, up to this one, these are the ones I have. So that way you don't go any further than that. But that's about it in a nutshell. That's what we're doing here. Now the main screen is, I haven't really worked that much on the main screen. One of the things that I thought was pretty cool is there's quite a few of these buttons, and one of the things that they've got on the new one and that I'll start working with is they've got the ability now of giving it a arrow button, okay? And what that does is it allows it to basically create a sub-menu onto the button.
Is that like a drop list there?
Yeah, it's just like these up here, like this save is. When you click it, see what it does?
Oh, it didn't have that before?
Up here. No, we did not have that before.
Oh, good.
That's and we're going to use that.
Well, yeah, you got to have that.
So I'll be rearranging these screens here pretty soon to do that.
No kidding.
As we go through it, yeah. Yeah. So we won't have as many of the small buttons. We'll have a little bit bigger buttons, but they'll have drop lists underneath them for additional features that's necessary for the button. questions? Because this, you know, like I said, we're going to be pushing out the code. I'm going to put out another web service code today or first thing in the morning. I know that probably everybody be off tomorrow anyway, but Tim will get it to you for Tuesday or drop it in the Dropbox Tuesday. And I may take tomorrow and work some more on this, and I'll also be putting out the first instances of the Chatterbox software itself. Next time we get together,
are you going to have versioning on this so we know what version we're on with you?
Right now it's version 1.0.
Okay.
Until release.
Okay, so you're not going to have build numbers or anything so we know where we're at compared to what you run?
Yeah, I can do build numbers, yeah. We'll do build numbers. Okay. I think on the web service he's been putting the date, but we'll do build numbers, yeah. Okay. So we'll do a 1.00 or whatever and go on from there.
Cool. Thank you.
So, but as we go through this thing, when we get into calling for the chat room itself and things like this, and when the members get that build, we will actually fire it up and start talking to each other using that chat room instead of this. So we want to keep everybody abreast, because at the point when we test that, we will actually be using it for a chat room. Going on from there. Okay. So everybody got a pretty good head around these, what I'm doing in the classes and pulling the data from the web services.
I like how you build all those structures so you can grow from that. I mean, just in case you miss something.
Absolutely. It makes it real easy, because I can go change the web service, then notify everybody that the web service has changed, and just throw out new data, and it's just rocks. I just changed over the feedback module to use web services instead of direct access. So right now we've just implemented that on 2 web pages that, you know, they can click a feedback and give us either changes they want on the web pages or changes to go straight to the Project Pro. Doing the same thing with this, the feedback module here will actually be using a web service and sending stuff directly to a web service.
So do you use that feedback to go back to fog bugs too, or just to?
I can. I don't use fog bugs because I don't need it now anymore, since I don't work with TCI or TCF. But I do have an interface to FogBug, so it can go back and forth, yes. So it's not too difficult. This right here works best for me and Pete, because we both use the Project Pro, and it comes straight to our screens, and we can manage it.
Well, because I kind of want to use your engine there to feed Kayako, which is my help desk. And so I want to kind of feed off of how that does it.
Okay. We'll talk about it.
Well, yeah. For a low subscription fee, we'll be able to hook you up with something, Arnold.
How low can you go, Pete?
How low can you go?
Well, we know you're Mr. Moneybags, so your low might not be the same as other folks' low.
Oh, that's so good to know. How do you mute him? How do you mute this guy?
I don't know. You're the command center, dude.
Let me go mute him. So,
anybody got questions on the web services? Confused on the web services?
So, hey, so can I ask you something on the web services? So this can be a really dumb question, but so on the web services, you're passing data, and so you're doing it to a web page, right? But can you pass it to another WinDev program, or would you?
Sure.
I mean, would you?
Well, your web service. Okay, now you understand this web service is actually. Some people said you needed WebDev to build a web service. No, that's not the case. I actually build my web services in WinDev, okay, and then publish it to the web service, okay, because I find it easier to debug in WinDev and do certain things in it than I do WebDev, okay. So this is all written in WinDev, and then I tell it I want to publish a web service, and it publishes what I'm looking to do.
Well, that's the big advantage. What you just said is it's easier to debug, right? I mean, that's kind of key.
To me, it is. To me, it is, because I can actually run it here locally a little bit easier, and then when I get up on the web service, I can run it up there. In fact, part of the error handling class functionality, which we'll go over probably the next time around. We'll start going over error handling classes and stuff like that. We'll basically do a trace if I want it to. So I can actually trace it and hold it as a file on there and see what's going on or what's been happening and return back. I've also got a few other debugging things that I've been working on to try to get it resolved. But you know, it's all juggling. What I call is juggling hammers. You know, I got so many to juggle now. A little bit of this gets done. I hit one or two nails, and come back and hit one or two nails. That's what happens. So, as I get moving forward, you get a bunch of stuff, and then you got to sit there for a little while and wait. But right at the moment, all of the web services now return data. I'm going to be cleaning it up just a minute. We're going to be working on the web service for the chat, you know, to be the feed. And I'll be working on the front screen of the chat to kind of clean it up and make it look nice to what we want to do, and start working on how the look and feel of that is. Now, the way we want to do this is we want everything to be 99% in the classes, and the reason why is there's a couple of reasons why. And for those that have been out on the news groups or out on the forums can understand, we can manipulate the data faster. We can do a lot of things with it in multiple instances of it. It makes it a lot nicer for us, and as we go through this, you'll understand why we do it this way rather than direct access to the files. But we'll be also probably next session is that we'll be going through the web service for the chat itself, on how you get your chat in and how you get your chats back out based upon where you're at. That's one of the things I'm going to be going through. And also Pete will be starting to frame up the web page and the website and what we're doing on all of that information as well. So you'll start seeing the web come together. And what I'm really expecting to do is that within 2 sessions, we'll actually be able to go pop up on the web pages and chat with each other, you know, have the WinDev chatting with the web page back and forth, which would be nice. It'd be extremely nice. So, other than that, this is not an overly large meeting, you know. We want to try to keep it between 30 and 45 minutes, which is where we're at. If you have questions on the code, then if you're part of the WinDev or part of the group that's going to be there this fall in August, then you can review it. You can say, Andy, I don't understand what you're doing here, and we'll go through it. Or Pete, I don't understand what you're doing here, and we'll go through it. Other than that, we're just going to be tossing code your direction, and then we'll go in depth of the concepts, the functionality, and everything at the developers conference, and how this can be moved and used elsewhere. Because part of my purpose in this is that the chat room and the APIs for the screen sharing and stuff can be pulled directly out and utilized as a customer help system for, you know, custom software. So if I'm sitting here and somebody needs help and I don't know what I'm doing here, I can say, click this button, and boom, I've got the code and you're off and running. So, makes it pretty easy. There'll be some things you can pull out of this and use in your own systems. That's the idea behind it.
Very cool. Well, we started on time and we're finishing on time. That's great.
Perfect.
So, nobody else has any questions? Then we got to go back to the hot dogs and beer.
I say y'all be good at it. We'll see you in a couple of weeks and do this all over again.
Okay. Talk to you all later.
Okay.
See you, Tim.
All right.
And Pete.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.